הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כאיילות ואילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כאיילות אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו
אילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כאיילות ואילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כאיילות מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך שמך מלכנו אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך זה לא שינה, ומיד כשחזרתי הייתה לך הרגשה שאני עוד אוהב אותך, שאני כבר שלך, ואהבת ושמחת וחשבת שרציתי להיות שם תמיד בשבילך, כי ידעתי שככה זה טוב, שלשניים יהיה יותר פשוט לאהוב, כל הדרך אני לצידך. גם אני עוד שומע וגם אני לא יודע איך עושים את זה, איך שזה לא קל לאהוב ללא תנאי. והופתענו כשבא השינוי הגדול, והבטחנו תמיד לדבר, וראינו אחרי שבועות וימים שלא קל לעמוד מול הרגל. גם אני עוד שומע וגם אני לא יודע איך עושים את זה, איך שזה לא קל לאהוב ללא תנאי. גם אני עוד שומע וגם אני לא יודע גם אני עוד שומע וגם אני לא יודע איך עושים את זה, איך שזה לא קל לאהוב.
our Kabbalat Shabbat with Yedid Nefesh, soulmate, a gift that was given to us, Shabbat, our soulmate.
ידיד נפש, אב הרחמן, משוכבתך, ארץ עונך, יערות עבדך, כמו היד,
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is good to have a normal Shabbat. After all this Shabbatot of holidays, this is the first Shabbos in which we start our cycle of Torah reading. We are reading in this Shabbat Parashat Bereshit, the first Torah portion of the entire Torah, the beginning of everything, the beginning of our story, the beginning of our worldview, the beginning, that place in which we start engaging with the foundation of wisdom, with the source of wisdom. bring to your living room, to wherever you are, 2 candles. Make sure that you have a cup of wine next to you. And if you don't have your candles or your cup of wine next to you, you have them here. You are with us. We are together in this sanctuary that we create. I'd like to invite you to welcome Shabbat, turning your Sidurim to page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We come to welcome Shabbat with joy. And we ask for this Shabbat to be a time of renewal, a time in which we chant old and new melodies, but those melodies help us become a new song, a Shir Hadash. We're on page 130, Lechun Elana La Adonai, followed by Shiru La Adonai, Shir Hadash, on page 131.
Lechun eranena l'Adonai, nari al tzur ishenu, nekadma fanav betoda bizmirot, nari alo nekadma fanav betoda
Bismirot, Nari Alo,
Shiru l'Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru l'Adonai, Kol haaretz, Shiru l'Adonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru miyom leyom, Yeshuato, Sabru v'roim, Kevodo, Bechol ha'amim, B'vodai,
אדוני מלאך תגל הארץ, ישמחו הים רבים, זרוע לצדיק ולשרי לב שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, בודו לשכר קודשו. There's a story about the beginning, Bereshit, the light that was created at the beginning of creation. And light can't be perceived if there is no container for that light. So tells the legend that God was thinking where to put, where to place, where to contain that light. And so he decided to place that light in the heart of the righteous. He decided for us to be the containers and the seekers of that light. And every time that we perform acts of loving kindness, a bit of that light is shared with the rest of the world. And that's the source of Or Zarua Latzadik. Light will be shown to the righteous. So may this Shabbat brings us closer to the discovery of that light that lies within us. We're on page 134.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בחצוצרות וכל שופר, הריעו לפני המלך אדוני.
Page 136. 7 Psalms in front of 7 days of creation. 6 Psalm is Morle David, Psalm 29. Reminder of our own creation. Reminder of the creation of humanity.
בהדרת קודש
a little bit more of sound in my monitor. I can't hear myself so well. In the meantime, we turn our Sidurim to page 138. We come to the encounter of the bride, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala.
Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, Shemo letiferet v'lithilah. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, Ki hi me'or ha'beracha. Merosh mikdem nesocha, Sof ma'aser machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitareri, hitareri, Giva orech komi ori. Uri, uri, shel daveri, Kevod Adonai alaych lila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. לא תבושי ולא תיגדי, מה תשכחי ומה תהבי. בך יחסו עניי עמי, ונבנתה עיר עתיקה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהולה. תוך אמונה עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We have welcome Shabbat. Shabbat is among us, and now it is our work, our challenge to transform this Friday night, this evening, into a night of Shabbat, into a night in which we come to the encounter of that is sacred for us. we invite you also to take a moment to acknowledge each other's presence and to say good Shabbos. To say good Shabbos to those sitting here, physically sitting here. Zach and Jordan Richter, Evan Griffith and Gabriel Newman. And we say Shabbat Shalom to you. We encourage you also to write good Shabbos on the comments, in the comment section on Facebook and on YouTube. And so together we grant Shabbat, one more song, one more chant. Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat.
מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור, מזמור שיר,
שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר,
שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור שיר,
שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום
page
השבת.
144.
יתגדל ויתקרא שמי רבה, ועמד יברך חירותי ויניח מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, ואמרו
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם ועד יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמד קודשם בריחו, לעילה מן קודחתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמהירן בעלמה, ואמרו
Amen. I invite you to rise on your legs or in your spirit for Baruch as we turn toward Jerusalem.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening, Baruch Ata Adonai, Ama'arif Aravim.
Amen.
בת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך, אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. Everlasting love, you offer your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lay down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We'll try to find proximity to you. We will think about your presence in every single thing that makes us feel unique. In every single thing that makes us feel loved. We'll think about the teachings that we have received, legacies that we have received from teachers, from friends, from our children, from our parents and grandparents. Wisdom and love. We will close our eyes and recognize as we go into our inner world that we are not alone. That through eternity, through time, we are connected to past generations and to future generations. And we pray for this love to always be a part of our lives. As we say, dear God, please never remove that love from us. Allow us to be always able to recognize that love, to embrace that love, and to allow that love to be a part of our lives, to embrace us. עבדך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. We're on page 152 for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. We continue on page 154 with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וכשאתם נאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, אמת באמונה כל סוד וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו. When your children witness your presence, they praise your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moshe, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices with joy. Who is like you, O God? Mi chamocha, Bailim Adonai. We're on page 158. אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. Thus it is say, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. ברוך אתה, אדוני, גואל ישראל. page 160, משכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום.
ושמור צדקנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם.
page 164 for Tfilat Amidah. We invite you to follow along the words of our Siddur, but also to try to find your Tfilah Shebalev, the prayer of your heart. Those words that you struggle to reach in your heart. Try to recognize them. Try to own them. And try to let them become a part of your reality, so you can become your prayer.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Ofi Yagid Ofi Yagid Tehillatah.
לא, תגיבו לו למה זה מחיים מדינת הרב להשי, נלמך על כחיים. לצירה. מודים אנחנו לך שאתה עונה אלינו ולא יעבוד אלינו במותנו. רצון חיינו מגין אישנו, אתה הוא לדור בדור, נותן לך מן הפרטות. שלום רב על ישראל, עמך תשים לעולם, כי אתה הוא מלך אדום לכל השלום, ובית ובניך ולברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. אתה אדוני, מלך אדום, ובשלום. ולרצון עם רפי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart to you, אדוני, my rock and my redeemer. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו. לכל ישראל ולכל יושבי תבל, the one who makes peace in the high heavens. Make peace for us, for all Israel, and for all who inhabit this earth that was created for us. Let us say amen.
Amen.
We now take a moment to acknowledge people dealing with illness. During this pandemic time, first responders, we think of essential workers. We of course think of those dealing with COVID. We think of all those dealing with illness in their bodies and in their souls. We think of those dealing with addictions. As we bring our hearts together to pray for their recovery on page 371. Misheverach.
May the source of strength, who Lema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Wish to all of them רפואה שלמה, החלמה מהירה, a complete and a fast recovery. Let us say.
Amen.
Good Shabbos, Parashat Bereshit.
Amen.
So let me 1 second to place my Siddur on the side. And I must tell you, Parashat Bereshit is one of my favorite Torah portions in the entire Torah. And I know you'll say that I say that maybe too often. And it might be right. But Parashat Bereshit has so much. Now, think about this for a moment. Before I start even speaking about the topic of this Torah portion that I want to share with you, how many books have the Torah?
5.
5 books, right? Like we were speaking about that last Friday. Who knows 5, right? 5 books of the Torah. And those 5 books, 4 of them, 80% of the Torah, is dedicated to Moses and the desert. Bereshit, Genesis, is something else. Something else. It's mysticism, it's poetry, it's stories about human beings in such an intimate level. So as we start, and I am really excited to start reading from the book of Genesis, I encourage you to explore, as we start the cycle of reading, to deeply explore the book of Genesis. And I want to share an idea about this book that I think is quite important, particularly in our times. Now, one of the fundamental concepts in Jewish tradition is the non-duality of God, right? We say Adonai one. We very often. Now, number 1 in Hebrew is represented by the letter
Aleph.
Aleph, the first one, which is a muted letter, has no sound, and is representative also in the Kabbalistic tradition of the Ein Sof, the infinite, of the divine presence itself. Now, the Torah doesn't start with the letter Aleph. The Torah starts with the letter Bet, Bereshit. And says a Midrash that actually the Torah starts with the letter Bet, representative of number 2, because God, when He's creating the world, is holding a Torah. He's reading a manual, an instructions manual, and creating the world. And that creation, from the very beginning, from Bereshit bara, in the beginning God created, Bereshit bara, in the beginning created, God, you would say, that's a second Torah. That's already a second Torah. And that, we say this Midrash, this exegetic story, that's the oral tradition. The written tradition is in God's hands, says the Midrash. So, right away at the beginning, the Torah starts with the number 2 and with ideas about the meaning of this number 2. And as a matter of fact, we do know that in our tradition we speak about 2 Torahs, a written Torah and an oral Torah. Bereshit bara, 2 words that come together. In the beginning, time, created, and action. And there are two concepts that come in a pair, two concepts. And then, את השמיים ואת הארץ. את השמיים, the heaven, the sky, and את הארץ, the earth. Sorry, the earth, ארץ. את הארץ. That was a good combination between the two words. Once again, two concepts. בארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו. And the earth, the Eretz, was a chaos, right? But even for the word chaos, we use two words in Hebrew. Tohu, vavohu. Two words to say chaos. And now it doesn't end there because the entire story goes on and we say that he was distinguishing, he was separating between or, light, vechoshech, darkness, and between yom, day, balayla. And as the story goes on, then God says, let us make a human in our image. He's talking to someone. He is in a dialogue. Do you know how you say dialogue in Hebrew? We say do, maybe from the word to, siach, conversation. He's in a du-siach. And the rabbis later on will explain that he was speaking to the angels, but there was some dialogue component in the creation of humanity. And then men and women are created. And once again, two, men and women. And what's the first mitzvah that they are given?
Multiply.
Be fruitful and multiply. And it also comes in two words, pru, verbu. And not just that. The first chapter of Genesis is the first story of creation, but then the second chapter has a second story of creation, of the creation of humanity. And the second story of creation of humanity says that God put the air, the wind, the neshima, a breath of creation, and gave us our soul through our nostrils that are also two. And it's written the word vayetzer et Adam. That is written the word litzor, vayetzer, with two yuds. And we spoke already several times about the fact that the rabbis, many rabbis, interpret the presence of the letter yud twice in that context of the good inclination and the evil inclination. Once again, two. And our bodies. Have you thought about our bodies? Two hands, two eyes, 2 ears, 2 legs. What else is in two? What about our hearts?
Our hearts.
It's one heart, right? But hearts have 2 sections.
Yeah.
And what about our brains?
There's 2 halves.
2 halves to our brains. So there are 2 parts to our brains. So number 2 is quite interesting. And it doesn't end there. When we go on in the story of the Torah, the first mitzvah is given to the Jewish people, and we spoke about that last week, is given the mitzvah of counting the months, of sanctifying the months, is given to 2 people, to Moshe and Aaron. And then our tradition requires, in order to make something sacred, to have 2 witnesses. But even more than that, shtei luchot avrid. We are given 2 tablets. And that happens 2 times, right? And more than that, this is the last one. In the Mishnaic tradition, a big part of our history and story is led by pairs of rabbis. We call them sugot. These are rabbis that work together, and they would, almost by definition, disagree with each other and argue with each other One was the head of the rabbinical tribunal, and the other one was the head of the rabbinical court, the Nasi and Av Beit Adim. And there were the pairs. A very famous one is, the last one of these pairs, is Hillel and Shammai. But an interesting thing about Hillel and Shammai, that at the beginning, they were actually Hillel in English, and Menachem. And the story says in the Mishnah that Hillel and Menachem agreed. And therefore, Menachem was taken away, and they brought Shammai. So they could argue. And that's serious. Because the ability to argue with each other and to disagree with each other is apparently an important one. Now let's go back to the book of Genesis. The Zohar says that the first two human beings, Sahar Benekeva bara otam, female and male, they were created, or he or she created them. It actually means that this being that was created was actually one being that had these two creatures stuck to each other in their backs. Now, think about that for a moment. Can you fulfill the mitzvah of pru verbu, of be fruitful and multiply if you are with your back stuck to another being? Well, apparently you can't. It turns out that in order to create some level or some kind of continuity in a story, in a narrative, that's what's happening right the way at the beginning in the book of Genesis, we need to be able to separate from each other. We need to be able to turn around and face each other. Interestingly enough, the word face in Hebrew is actually, how do you say face in Hebrew?
Panim.
Panim, right. Panim is face in Hebrew. It's actually a plural word. We need to be able to face each other. We need to be able to engage with each other. Now, facing each other and engaging with each other, it's not necessarily easy, but it's important in order to continue and to be able to create something. Now, when we don't face each other, we can't create. And I think that that's an interesting thing that is happening to us, right? For those that were following the news and watched the town halls this week, I think that they represent, to some extent, the decay of our society. The fact that we have two presidential candidates that can't engage in conversation, that can't debate with each other, and that end up having town halls in which they speak to journalists or they argue with journalists. And that happens at the same time, so they keep preaching to their own choir, is a symbol of not just their lack of willingness to engage in conversation with each other, because you could say, well, those are our politicians. It also says something about our society, right? We are competing for rating. We are competing to see who makes the stronger monologue, when we understand that creative action happens in dialogue. The entire Torah is telling us that creation happens in dialogue, and that the premise of the unity of God is strengthened by bringing the parts together, not by turning or transforming the parts into the same thing, but by acknowledging the distinctions and the diversity of the parts. Now, I want to add one component, to this idea. And it's about ourselves. It's about our ability to recognize what is stuck to our backs and what is keeping us stuck. Two different kinds of stuck in our lives. What are the things that we need to separate from them, take some distance, but not run away from them. Turn toward them, face them, and engage with them. We live in a country that is not engaging in conversation, and there is something that we need to rectify, and that starts by rectifying that in our own lives. That starts by we having the ability to separate, turn around, face, and engage. We can disagree, but we don't want to ignore. We can differ, we can be different, but we don't want to dismiss or disregard, because we understand that stories of creation, they start with two. They start with dialogue, with the dialogue. And we also understand that the ultimate invitation of the book of Genesis is to become, and this Torah portion, is to become partners in this creation. And once again, that partnership starts in the moment in which we understand that we are different and there's no way for us to create a story of development and continuity, not in our lives, nor in our country, if we don't engage with the one who's stuck in our backs and we don't face each other, understanding the dignity of the other. May we find the wisdom and the strength to make this difficult but very necessary step. Shabbat Shalom Mevorach. We will continue our service on page 598, 586, with Aleinu Leshavech, Ve'ashevota el levavecha, return us to you, return us to your heart. Ve'ashevota Maybe see the we will now, turn our Sidurim to page 598 as we acknowledge mourners among our community. We think of those during the first 7 days of mourning, Shiva, those during the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshim, and of course those that are during the cycle of the first year of mourning. We too think of those that have a yortzeit this week, and we invite all of you to share the names of your beloved ones on Facebook and YouTube in the comments section. Page 598, Mourners Kadesh, יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
בעלמה דברה חירותה בימליך מלכותה. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, באמרו
אמן.
יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה.
בריחו.
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם בעלמה, באמרו אמן.
אמן.
יש למרבה מן שמיה, בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו אמן.
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו אמן.
Amen.
May the memories of your beloved ones be a blessing. יהיה זכרם ברוך. Maybe just one comment, and it's to say that we heard so many beautiful comments about the high holidays, about the sense of community, about the work that our staff have done. We are so grateful for your love, your positivity, your appreciation, and we also heard wonderful comments about the Who Knows 5 event, and it's great to engage in creative ways as we think how to live our lives together, and as we think of living our lives, not surviving, but living our lives. One more thing that I want to share, the privilege over the last week to participate in some of the preparatory sessions for the World Zionist Congress that this year happens virtually. I have the privilege to be an alternate delegate, so to participate in most sessions, and I will be participating in the Congress next week. It is such a beautiful thing. Think about the first one. Think about Herzl. Think about the dream. And think about the fact that we have a state, and that Jews all over the world keep engaging on dreaming and on building this state. It's such a privilege to sit in the North American group with people from a variety of streams in Judaism, and to engage in conversations and to study together, and to engage in thinking and supporting the state of Israel, each of us with his or her own perspective, diverse, different, but nonetheless united by our love for the state of Israel. So, a beautiful thing that I wanted to share. We will now turn to page 122 for Kiddush. Even I will be making a little different melody. So I want to tell you one of my childhood melodies that I think once in a while important to bring them out, particularly because we are in the book of Genesis and for Vayechulu. I just need to make sure that the key works because I haven't sang it for some time. You know this melody.
Okay.
והארץ בכל צבאה, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו, אשר עשה, לשבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, מורה פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו, והבאו ברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת חיים. Now, we'll take a moment of blessing, a moment in which we invite you to close your eyes and to think of those who you love and those who love you. A moment in which we connect and reconnect with each other in time, in which we think about our children, in which we think about our parents, we think of our grandparents, with our imagination, if we are not standing next to each other, we extend our hands toward the heads of our children, and we allow the hands of our parents, of our grandparents, those who love us, those that their memory keeps holding us, their presence holds us. Allow them to give us their love as we bring the millennial words of our tradition of love, a tradition of sharing legacy, tradition of continuity. We tell to our daughters, may you be like the mothers of Israel, the wise mothers of Israel. ישימך אלוהים כשרה רחל ולאה. We look at our boys and we tell them, may you be inspired to be like the fathers of Israel. ישימך אלוהים כאפרים וכמנשה. We tell them, may God bless you and protect you. יברכך אדוני וישמרך. May God's light shine upon you and may God be gracious to you. May you find light in the challenges that you deal with May in times of darkness you remember that there is an unconditional light, there's an unconditional source of love looking at you, connecting with you, coming from the wonders of time or standing right there next to you. We say, Yisa Adonai panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's presence be within you always. And may God grant you with all what you need. Serenity, patience, well-being, health. May you have the wisdom to perceive and to embrace love. May God grant you wholeness. And may you learn to take that wholeness, the blessing of peace, of shalom. May God grant you shalom. Yasem lecha shalom. Adonai os le'amo iten. Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Be'ata